Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Frel, your professor. This afternoon, our topic is on political geography, particularly in Asia. So why we need to study political geography? This will help us explain the cultural and physical factors that underlie political unrest. Political geographers study how people have organized the Earth's land surface into countries and alliances, the reasons for doing so, and the conflict that can erupt from the organization. My question is, where are states located? As we can see, almost all lands on the Earth belongs to a country. But this is not true as recently as 1940s, where only about 50 countries then. Now there are 192 members of the United Nations. Now let's define first what a state is. It is an area organized into a political unit and ruled by an established government that has control over its internal and foreign affairs. This occupies a defined territory and has a permanent population. Now let's define also what sovereignty is. This is an independence from control of its external affairs by other states. States are examples of formal regions because the entire territory is ruled by a common government, laws, military, and the likes. And country can be synonymously associated with state. Now let's have some of the problems in defining states, such as in the case of Antarctica, which is the only large landmass on Earth that is not part of a state. Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway, and the United Kingdom, of course, all claim portions of Antarctica, while the US and Russia do not recognize these claims. And in the Treaty of Antarctica in 1959, as well as in 1991, it says that states may establish research stations but may not have a military presence in Antarctica. So as you can see in the figure, almost all of the countries that I have mentioned earlier have taken part of Antarctica, except for a portion that you can see near New Zealand's claim, where that remained unclaimed. And Australia have taken the largest portion, followed by Norway, of course. Another problem is there is some disagreement about the number of sovereign states around the world. Korea, China, and Western Sahara, or the Sahrawi Republic, are examples of places that test the definition of state. So let's take the case of Korea. Can we consider that as one state or two states? So after Japan was defeated in the Second World War, Korea was divided into two occupational zones by the United States and Russia. So the division was made at 38 degrees north latitude. But in 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea. But after 3 years, a ceasefire was agreed upon near the 38th parallel. As a result, both governments are committed to reunification. So in 2000, they agreed to exchange visits of families separated for more than 50 years for increased economic cooperation. But progress is slowed by North Korea's decision to build nuclear weapons, even though the country can provide its citizens with food, electricity, and other basic necessities. And both countries were admitted in the United Nations in 1992. Now let's have China and Taiwan, one state or two states. In 1949, the ruling government of China lost a civil war and fled to the island of Taiwan. They claimed to still be the rightful government of China and that they were waiting for the defeat of the communists so that they could return to the mainland of China. So the communist China claimed Taiwan and vice versa. They agreed there was only one state but not about who ruled it. So in 1999, Taiwan decided to claim itself as a separate sovereign state. But prior to that, in the 1950s and in the 1960s, the United States did not recognize Communist China as a country. Not until 1971 did the U.S. recognize Communist China, where they were awarded the United Nations seat formerly held by the Taiwanese government. Now, how about Western Sahara or the Sahrawi Republic? So most African countries recognize it as a sovereign state, but Morocco does not. They claimed the territory and built a 3,000-kilometer wall around it to keep out rebels. So the territory was controlled by Spain until 1976 when they withdrew. So an independent state was declared, but Morocco and Mauritania annexed the northern and the southern portions. And after 3 years, Mauritania withdrew and Morocco claimed the entire territory. So today, Morocco controls most of the territory. However, there is a government group that operates in the sparsely populated deserts, especially the 1/5 of territory outside the wall. A ceasefire was signed in 1991 and a United Nations peacekeeping force upholds it. While all of this is going on, Spain controls 2 cities in Morocco. They were annexed into Spain 500 years ago, and the combined 140,000 residents favor remaining part of Spain. So it's up to you now, class, to decide whether you're going to consider the countries that I have mentioned earlier as 1 or 2. Now let's proceed with the varying size of states. Of course, among these states, the largest is Russia with 6.6 million square miles. That composes the 11% of the total land area. While China, Canada, United States, Brazil, and Australia are the only other states of more than 2.9 million square miles. Though we have these largest states by size, we also have what we call micro-states. These are states with very small land areas. An example of this, the smallest one is Monaco with 0.6 square miles. And of course, many of these micro-states are small islands. So the development of a state concept is a recent concept actually, because before the 1800s, Earth was organized in other ways such as city-states, empires, and tribes. So let's go back with the ancient states. The first states to develop in the Fertile Crescent or the Mesopotamia were called city-states. They are sovereign state that compromises a town and the surrounding countryside. So usually, city was walled for protection and surrounding countryside was used for agriculture. So today, this location is found in Iraq. That's the modern name for Mesopotamia. So sometimes one city-state would assert dominance in the area and create an empire. Example, you have Sumerians, you have the Assyrians, and the Babylonians. So about the same time, the Egyptians were forming an empire along the Nile River Valley. Now in Europe, we also have early European states, such as that of the Roman Empire that controlled most of Europe, North Africa, and Southwest Asia. It spanned from England in the north to Egypt in the south, and from Spain in the west to Iran in the east. So after the fall of the empire, Europe was broke up into large states owned by kings, by dukes, and many others. So as a result, they fought each other and some consolidated lands into kingdoms. Around 1100s, powerful kings began to emerge as they consolidated large states such as that of England, France, and Spain. Germany and Italy, however, were not consolidated until the 1800s. Now let's talk about colonies. These are territory that is legally tied to a sovereign state rather than being completely independent. Usually, they are sparsely populated before the colony is established. So what is this concept of colonialism? This is the effort by one country to establish settlements and impose its political, economic, and cultural principles on a territory. So as regards to European states, they created colonies for three reasons. One is, of course, you are very familiar with it, to promote Christianity. Second is to gain valuable resources. Third is to show their relative power. So we use to describe it in the form of the 3G, speaking of or representing of God, gold, and glory. Europeans first started colonizing in the late 1400s in Americas. So most of those colonies declared independence by 1824, and Europe turned to Africa and Asia. So a new concept was introduced now. It is called imperialism. This is the control of territory already occupied and organized by an indigenous society. So among these countries, United Kingdom created largest colonial empire. There was the saying that goes like this: "Sun never sit on the British Empire." So France also had a large empire or colonies concentrated in West Africa and Southeast Asia. So France attempted to assimilate its colonies into French culture and educate an elite group to provide local leadership. So after independence from most French colonies remained close to France. The British created different government policies in each of its colonies, such as by allowing local inhabitants to maintain their diverse cultures and local customs. British colonies also made peaceful transitions to independence in most cases. However, most African and Asian colonies became independent after the Second World War. Only a handful of colonies still exist, and most are islands in the Pacific or the Caribbean, and most populous of this is Puerto Rico. Now, my question is, why do boundaries cause problems? Even today, we experience problems as far as boundaries are concerned. Now, first we'll define what a boundary is. It is an invisible line marking the extent of a state's territory. It can be natural physical features or cultural features such as religion and language. Boundary locations often generate conflict because the lines are the only place where two neighboring countries must have physical contact. These boundary conflicts can also be an issue due to shapes of states. So, shape of a state controls the length of its boundaries with other states. Shape also can influence the ease or difficulty of internal administration and can affect social unity. So there are 5 basic shapes of states. We have the compact, the prorupted, the elongated, the fragmented, and the perforated. Now let's discuss it one at a time. Let's start with the compact states, which is being noted to be efficient. So compact states is a state where the distance from the center to any boundary does not vary significantly. So this is ideal. The ideal compact state would be a circle with the capital in the center, and because of its being a compact, it allows for good communications from all regions. Example, we have Burundi, Kenya, and Uganda. Now, how about the prorupted states, or noted as for its access or disruption? Prorupted states is an otherwise compact state with a large projecting extension. So, these proruptions of a state are created for 2 reasons. One is to provide a state with access to a resource such as water. Like, for instance, Congo stretches to Atlantic Ocean, or why Cabinda is separated from the rest of Angola. Then the second reason is to separate 2 states that would otherwise share a border. Example, Afghanistan separates Russia from Pakistan. Now the third one are elongated states, which is potential for isolation. So these are states with a long, narrow shape, but we only have a handful of these states. Example, you have Chile, which is over 2,500 miles long, but only 90 miles wide. Italy also is a less extreme example, 700 by 120 miles. Gambia is an elongated state on an east-west orientation with 300 miles wide by 15 miles long. By that is completely surrounded by Senegal. So as a result, it may suffer from poor internal communication, and some regions may be isolated from the capital, which is usually near the center. Next, we have the fragmented states, which is said to be problematic. These are states with several discontinuous pieces of territory. Technically, any state that has offshore islands is considered fragmented. Fragmentation is particularly significant for some reasons. So there are 2 types of fragmented states. One is area separated by water, and the other is area separated by an intervening state. Indonesia is most extreme fragmented state, 13,677 islands spread over 3,000 miles in the Indian Ocean, and 80% of population lives on the 2 islands of Java and Sumatra. So fragmentation hinders communication and makes integration of people living on remote islands nearly impossible. So the Indonesian government encourages migration from major population centers to more remote areas to encourage national integration. So you can see in the figure of how Indonesia is considered as an extreme fragmented state. The United States, Russia, Angola, and Bangladesh are examples of countries with territories separated by other states, like that of the Kaliningrad, separated from the rest of Russia by 250 miles. But this is important to Russia because it gives them access to the Baltic Sea. Another is that the Tin Biga corridor of India divides Bangladesh. While Panama was fragmented state, while the U.S. controlled the canal and the surrounding canal zone. But now that the U.S. has returned control of the canal, Panama is now an elongated state. Then we have the Perforated States in South Africa. This is a state that completely surrounds another one. South Africa is a great example where it completely surrounds Lesotho. Lesotho, which is dependent upon South Africa for import and export of goods. And the fifth one is the landlocked states. These are states that lacks a direct outlet to the sea because it is completely surrounded by several other countries. 14 out of the 54 countries in Africa are landlocked. They are actually remnants of European colonialism. So access to a seaport is critical because it facilitates international trade. So due to that, bulky goods are usually transported by ship, and landlocked states are at the mercy, of course, of other states for the use of their seaports. Okay, class, so that would be all for the political geography in Asia. And for your activity, is among the states discussed in the video, choose one that encourages you to visit. Discuss why you prefer to visit the country and identify the risk due to the boundary disputes or due to its shapes. Write your composition for not more than 250 words. So again, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.